Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day recap for Thursday, the 22nd. And big sell off day across the board, almost a full participation to the downside in a lot of stocks. We talked about this yesterday. I'll give you my quick outlook, and if you had a chance, or if you haven't had a chance to watch my video from last night, you could take a look at that on my Twitter page. But I was talking about how I really didn't like the price action yesterday, and I thought that we were leaning to the downside. I didn't know that there was going to be the tariff announcement and a further washout like we saw today that resembled, a little bit of this price action. But clearly, the price action has kind of been giving us some signals that something just wasn't right. My thought on yesterday was, and again, you could view my video from yesterday, but my thought was in the morning yesterday, prior to the Fed, we really saw the opposite of what we should normally be seeing, in regards to the VIX was dropping, going into the FOMC meeting, and the S&P was rallying a bit, and to me, it felt like short covering, right? It looked like the shorts were covering into the meeting because they didn't want the risk. But that was really the only reason that we saw that we saw that little bit of a relief rally. That's not really how things should act on Fed Day, from my experience. And I've been doing this for a long time. I've been trading for a very long time institutionally. And normally, what happens on these Fed days, which again just gave us, and again why I'm rehashing this, is it just gave us a good signal. Is normally there's a little bit of fear and into the uncertainty of the event. Usually the VIX rises, and then after the event, once the event becomes known, the VIX comes in, and it did the exact opposite of that. And that doesn't seem or feel right. And the other thing that I thought was, hey, maybe there just hasn't been much buying in this market because of the overhang of the Fed meeting, and I've started to think that we would get back on track in terms of seeing some real buying and institutional buying come into the option market. And we just haven't had that the last 3 or 4 days. Yesterday we did see some buying in some other things, but some other groups, a little bit of energy kind of catch up buying, which is not my favorite buying, by the way. When you see that buying as prices are moving, like we saw yesterday in energy, it's not my favorite signal. So we had the S&P, just to kind of rehash today's price action, which is going to be pretty quick to do. We've broken a lot of things here. I've got the 100-day moving. I got the 50-day moving average. I've got the 100-day moving average on my charts here, and we've broken through that. Next up, unfortunately, and this was the other thing that I mentioned yesterday and this morning, I said, we don't have a lot of support. We don't have a support level to really, back us up. And I mentioned that. Yeah, like I said this morning, I usually look at the 1 hour value area, and once we're trading below value, we didn't have any more VPOCs to go, which I talked about that the other day. But seriously, there's just not much support. Of which we sliced through. I said this might act as a little bit of support, and we got through that. So just vicious selling pressure, I would say. IWM, we'll go to that next on the daily chart. I did want to see how that you go back to the beginning of the day. Yeah, we actually fell in value for this. This was the kind of what I was thinking midday. I was like, these small caps are actually holding up pretty well. Around lunchtime today, midday today, it looked like it was going to hold this top of value, and it was only down 30 basis points. Well, look at it now. It's down over 2%, and that washout at the end of the day. So again, you kind of look at these things, and these are sell signals. So I'm not so sure, even though I think we're getting to the one end of the spectrum in terms of fear and greed, which is now an 11. Which, once we get into the single digits, which this only updates, I think, once a day. So we should be in the single digits there, but it doesn't mean that there can't be, more selling ahead. So what I kind of advocated today, and what I did, was just really not trade that much. And that's what I talked about yesterday too. I talked about being very quick with some trades, and I think some traders did that today a little bit. Had that opportunity to kind of scalp back and forth, but there's when you have red days like this, and I like to buy I like to buy the dip, and I'll tell you that's what's been so difficult, I think, for traders in this market is because you've had this muscle memory for a while that any dip that we've seen over like the last year or so has been bought very quickly. Uh, and we don't have that right now. We've had this kind of death by a thousand cuts, or death by a few cuts here. We've just been steadily moving down since IWM hit the 52-week high, and it's basically the same thing in any chart that you look at. But it's just been a kind of miserable, move down the last couple weeks where any little move back gets squashed, and this is what the Qs look like too. Since they made that 52-week high, it's been a straight down. And notice we hit the 52-week high here too, and moved down. So I kind of said this in the beginning of the day, and I said, hey, if the call buyers and the aggressive buying that we like to see as confirmation does not come into this market, I'm really not going to be that active today. So what did we see today? And you could kind of, rather than me, share my opinions and so forth, you could see today's option call buying. First of all, one of the first thing out of the gates was SPXS. This is 3 times levered short. And they bought calls in this right on the open. They also bought a lot of puts right around the open today in the first 5 or 10 minutes. And it was like, ugh, that was not a good sign. Some call buyers did come back into the market today, just a little bit. But most of it was pretty small. Like this NTNX, it's 300 shares, so this is not something I think that you really want to hang your hat on. If we've got a strong momentum day to the upside, I mean, take for example, and that's also what makes this with these days so difficult when everything just gets washed out. NTNX saw a little bit of calls. We actually were watching this name and in the room before the calls hit, because we do have a lot of alerts set on areas that we think are pretty interesting. And NTNX, while Thinkorswim is trying to think, let's see if it comes up here. And let me zoom out once. And yeah, you can see this is where they bought calls, started to go up higher, got all the way to 55.12, all the way down. I mean, what a great opportunity, I guess, to scalp this name back and forth if you're quick enough. Made all the way, came to a low, and got back above value, was back positive for the day, and then finished down on the day with everything else. But that, and I would say, Shop is the name that I talked about yesterday. I'm in a little bit of Shop in some May calls. Again, I'm just not going to position big in anything. It's just not worth it. But yeah, even Shop, not Shop, sorry. Shop actually saw some puts today. Box is the name I'm thinking of. Shop actually did see some puts. I'll show you that order. But Box has been the name that's had the momentum. It's seen now call buying, I think, 3 days in a row. Mostly all April calls going up, but it's had the momentum the last couple days. So a real nice move. I've been talking about that one. Just so my Twitter alerts are not always going to be as active periodically through the day because I'm trading and I'm narrating our trading room. So I'm just not tweeting is second, third, of what I'm trying to accomplish during the day. So I don't tweet everything that goes out because I would rather be trading. And concentrating on that. But so there was a couple orders in the afternoon. We saw some more Apple call. We saw some June calls. I have to check open interest. I always get the question, what are these asterisks next to these signals? It's just because I have to check open interest for the next day. But the value areas on my charts, these and I'll wait till this comes up. The value areas for the month, for the week, for the day really give some good signals because look at Apple for the day, and we saw this on multiple. When things got a little bit of a bid midday, we only went right up to the bottom of value. So if you scalped a little bit today, like this is where you want to take your profits because we just didn't have the momentum. Same thing for Walmart, and again, and you'll see this across different names. Walmart rallied a bit. Where did it stall out? Right at the bottom of value. There was one other name, I think it was Win too, which saw call buying yesterday. And same exact thing. This one actually did not get all the way to the top of value, but got close to it. And that's your signal that we didn't have the momentum to carry through today. Apple, I think, actually held up pretty well. If you go to the daily chart, which is here. Apple, I believe, is down. It did break the 200-day moving average. Yeah, so there's not much to. I'll say the same phrase. There's not much to really hang your hat on today if you're bullish. I think you just have to kind of just continue to sit on your hands. Like I said, I wanted to buy a couple things at the end of the day, but when we finish on the lows of the day, that is not where I'm looking to add risk. I think you'll get enough of an opportunity. There's no rush, I think, to buy the dip right now. There's too much carnage, and yeah, I think we'll be getting to the end of it. Maybe we're set up for a bounce tomorrow, because I think things have gotten pretty oversold. And Fridays have actually been pretty decent days to trade. So I think you just have to kind of wait for tomorrow. And the same, we've got the same blueprint every day, where you don't want to be the first buyer into this market. You want to see the institutional buyers come back into this market, which they have not really shown up other than in really small bits and pieces. Again, I keep saying the same word, but patience in this, and continue to position lighter or have your hedges on, and then and then go from there. What was the last thing I was going to say, which I forget? Oh, just talking about stops and honoring stops. I mean, unfortunately, I do manage a cash systematic trend portfolio, and they have built-in stops. So I hate to sell things into the vacuum of what kind of happened today. But I had three stops that flashed on my screen today in some positions. REMX, which is the rare earths ETF, which is a commodity play. Even though we saw commodities being bought yesterday in options, I actually ratcheted up some stops. This broke one of my stops, so I'm out of it. Also, what was the other one? QD, which is a name that, yeah, I mean, it broke the 50-day moving average, so that's my stop. Now I could get back into these. This is not like a major, like, oh my God, it's horrible, I got stopped out. I just have to monitor these trades. If you don't monitor, then you make a big mistake, because if this name does get right back above the 50-day moving average, I probably want to be back in it. But if I don't monitor it, and if I don't put an alert to follow it, I may miss that. So, that happens to a lot of people, where they get stopped out and they're like, oh, geez, I don't want to look at that name anymore. No, I just don't want a big loser on my hands. So, this is a small loser. If it gets back above the 50-day moving average, I could get right back in. So, it is what it is. You have to I'm sticking to the plan, honoring some stops. That's what it's all about, being disciplined and not using your judgment ahead of everything else. So we'll see what we get tonight, or excuse me, I was going to say tomorrow, but tonight the overnight markets might be pretty ugly. Let's see how the Asian markets handle this. I would imagine they're going to open down. Let's see how they close tonight. Should be an interesting market reaction to watch tonight. All right, everybody, have a great night and see you tomorrow.